in our previous conversations with Mike Englezakis.
8,500 Rand for a buffalo in 1983, when Impala was selling for 100 Rand and kudus for 1,000, it was a lot of money. Where else can I find buffalo? Because disease-free buffalo were only coming out of Addo National Park. My wife was complaining that I'm spending too much money. That was the first time roan antelope went on an auction. We didn't know the value of game. Nobody had an idea what's an animal worth. All of a sudden there was a big interest in blue tigers, and that's what we have achieved.
Mike continues the conversation.
We kept having auctions every year, try every year to push and highlight an animal. A lot of interest was generated over the years in the game industry. We have managed to solve a lot of the problems the industry had about ownership of animals, adequate fencing rules, permits, permission to keep animals, permission to hunt. Because don't forget that the game industry or game farming was basically based in three pillars. The one was producing animals, the second one was hunting and meat production, and the third one, conservation. From the conservation side, we were getting support from some people, and we were getting very negative attitudes from others. So we made it our task to keep educating people and explaining to people the benefits of game farming, not the negatives, and just hunting is not the only benefit that game farming has. We won a lot of battles, not easy. I've been called controversial. I've been named many times in articles that I'm turning everything into runs and cents. But unfortunately, the only thing that makes sense is run and cents, or else you're not going to make money. And if you're not making money, you are not going to carry on being a charity or operation. A lot of more people got interested. Obviously, a lot of people that bought animals at my early sales and bought animals everywhere else. Now the numbers were increasing, and we started having more and more auctions, different places. It helped a lot because all of a sudden there were animals available. I'll never forget when we tried to bring in some sable from Zimbabwe. I don't want to mention the name of the guy, although he was a very nice guy. He came to the meeting and he says, how can you guys bring sable from Zimbabwe? You're going to drop the price of sable in South Africa. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? If you have an animal, if you want to buy an animal but you can't find it to buy it, you'll never put a price on it. But if the animals are available, obviously the prices will increase. And right now you got people that they say, oh, I want sable, but I can't find them anywhere. So I'll concentrate on Impala and kudu. But if you bring sable in and there's more sable, the prices will go up. And that is exactly what happened. We brought in sable and tsessibi from Zimbabwe. That pushed the price of sable up. And contrary to whatever everybody thought, more animals, more buyers. More animals, better prices. And the same thing happened with the buffalo. From 8,500 Rand, we landed up at 150, 200,000, 400,000. And that trend carried on. A lot of people spent a lot of their money into game farming, but what made a big difference was that all of a sudden, farmers that before used to get a crop license, and where, like I said earlier, used to go and shoot a kudu for a box of biscuits and killing kudus because they were damaging the crops, we now were getting farmers that in the dry time, they'll plant crops for the kudus because the people from Johannesburg and Pretoria and everywhere they wanted to hunt, they now won't bring in boxes of biscuits and bottles of brandy anymore. they were now bringing money. They'll pay 300-400 rand to be there for a bit of catering the auntie on the farm will do. They'll shoot a kudu and pay for it. They'll shoot an impala and pay for it. They'll shoot a warthog and pay for it. That created a new interest, and all of a sudden, people started putting up more and more game fences. And by putting up game fences, they were not happy anymore with just having kudu and impala. So the prices started going up in all species because it was supply and demand, and it built a very interesting concept where you had the glamour of being a game farmer. You had the image of protecting animals, and you were making money. So it was a perfect match. Also, we discovered, or we proved, because a lot of us knew it from the beginning, that game farming is much more profitable than livestock farming. And my opinion is that that is based on the 3 columns. And the one is that basically you have a variety of animals, so you land up with much better utilization of the land and much more kilograms per hectare produced than with domesticated stock. Game didn't need as much management as normal livestock did, for 2 reasons. One, because it was adapting, because it was used to nature. And 2, even if you wanted to treat it, you couldn't. It was more complicated. So we let things go on their own. And that, I think, helped the industry tremendously. The second pillar was that basically you now hunt. And when you do overseas hunters, the guy pays for a trophy, pays a very high price, stays on your farm at a high dollar price, and of course the meat stays with you. So you had a full benefit. The third one was that there was such a good market created for live animals that people will sell their excess animals and bring in more income. And you invite your friends to the game farm. You bring your business associates to the game farm. A lot of businesses that had extra money, a lot of companies that had extra money, they started investing in game farms. Mines started utilizing land that they had that was lying vacant or empty or not used for game farming. And it was actually a built-in process that went on with time, and it was built one brick at a time. It wasn't that we woke up one morning and we were in the game farming industry or in the game farming business. And all this sort of went up and up. I can only say I enjoyed every minute of it. It was an excellent process. And mainly because there was growth, mainly because there was continuous interest, new people coming in. Well, we started bringing in more buffalo, started bringing in sable. Then there was animals coming in from Malawi, from Zambia, from African countries, which helped our genetic pools because we did have very small genetic pools. By then also we started getting more and more animals out of the national parks because the national parks also realized there is money to be made. So that helped us, and I think that's brought us to, by 2011, there was so much interest in game farming, and the growth was really great.
In our last episode with Mike Englezakis.
Now, all of a sudden, because of the big interest in game farming, Plug Impala started. With the hunting, there was also a very big interest, which it was always there, for big trophy animals, top quality bulls. So we have already started diverting from the original idea of game farming, that it's a simple process. easier farming, more profitable farming, into a complicated business. I might be guilty of that as well, but I'm not any different to the rest of the monkeys. I'm also one of them. Never mind what color the skin is outside. There's only so many pounds or so many kilos of meat inside. And we can produce a lot more kilos of meat by using game animals than domesticated livestock. And for that reason, our industry will recover again and it will go forward.